Across metropolitan cities, Chinatowns share elements like prominent signage, a vibrant color palette, tiered balconies, Chinese gateways, and particularly the pagoda. To understand why their architecture are so distinct from both their Chinese roots and host cities, we will examine San Francisco's Chinatown, which was used as the model for Chinatowns in the many cities that followed. In 1906, the devastation of the San Francisco earthquake and subsequent fires aligned with the interests of white Americans to remove Chinatown. However, Chinese residents rallied to stay and capitalize upon the economic value of Chinatown, transforming their neighborhood into a spectacle. Edward Said's concept of Orientalism and Homi Bhabha's notion of hybridity allow us to understand how a community on the edge of displacement persisted and even thrived by adopting a distinct visual language for their built environment. An effort of self-exoticization and commodification promoted an Oriental aesthetic that had never existed before, and the success of this aesthetic led to a celebration of a new, hybridized, distinctly Chinese American identity. Ornamentation played a significant role in the process of reshaping the physical landscape, typically executed with overly decorative elements that exaggerated rather than reflected the cultural diversity and specificity of the community. The Xingchuan building influenced the use of the Chinese pagoda as a common motif. In Eastern culture, the pagoda is a sacred architecture, a place of worship. At the corner of the Xingchuan building, the pagoda serves no structural or meaningful purpose. However, its incorporation makes the building a cultural landmark. In order to create an iconic cityscape, Chinese businessmen Luk Tin Eli hired white architects, who referenced images of religious and imperial architecture, which featured a more vibrant color palette and extravagant ornamentation. The Xingchuan building has a yellow brick facade with colorful tiled roofs and green columns. The curved eaves are wrapped around the building, decorated with red undersiding and supported by a series of imitated wooden joinery. Highlighting the traditional use of color palette and exotic elements, it is a strategic response that the community built for survival. As other Chinatowns followed the model of San Francisco and developed their neighborhoods accordingly, similar motifs that hybridize the Oriental elements in a Western context increase its appeal as a tourist destination and cultural stronghold. In London's lively Chinatown, the bright red facade of the Lotus Garden is marked by golden characters and Oriental lattice patterns, while the entrance is guarded by a pair of stone lions. The upturned green roof is supported by oversized dugong brackets, a structurally significant element in traditional architecture. In Amsterdam's picturesque canal zone, a 6-story convenience store, Toko Donyon, has carved out a presence using red Corinthian columns and green eaves lined with red undersiding. At the corner of each eave, a golden dragon head is used as ornamentation to mimic the imperial roof decoration, which has symbolic meaning and structural importance to keep the roof in place. At the edge of Montreal's Chinatown, the 8-story Centerville Holiday Inn is decorated by Chinese-style eaves that wrap around the street fronts, covering ceramic green lintels that imitate traditional Chinese wood joinery. Upper balconies are lined with stone railings, and the top is crowned by 2 distinct pagodas that provide views of the city and assert Chinatown's identity. Through studying these Chinatowns, it is evident that the design intention behind the built environment is a testimony of a quiet protest. The act of self-exoticization and image-making represents the agency of the ordinary people who are fighting for their right to urban life. For a century, Chinatown has withstood discrimination, marginalization, and gentrification under the shield of the tourism industry that is supported by exoticization through excessive ornamentation. Today, Chinatowns across cities are undergoing another crisis due to xenophobia.
I was made invisible in physical and emotional ways.
This past year, they think all the Asians should go home, wherever home may be. But they don't know that home is here.
I remember very clearly feeling how sad I was, because this is the country that I was born in and I grew up in. I love everything about this country.
From the current pandemic violence to the competing real estate development, the same political forces and social myth-making that oppresses the community from the last century are still very much part of our society.